So our human rights reframing emphasizes three things. The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians is a political one, and thus has a solution. This is our insistence on the rational political element of the discussion. And it thus has a solution which, if based on human rights, protects both peoples while ensuring their needs are addressed, mystifying the conflict as a clash of civilizations is precisely the manipulative use of emotionalism that disempowers Israelis and makes any rational or moral solution impossible. Second of all, we say in our reframing, there is an occupation, because Israel leaves occupation completely out of the vocabulary. People talk always about terrorism. Very seldom will you hear people abroad talk about occupation, and certainly not in Israel, where it's not even part of our vocabulary. So there is an occupation, and rather than it being defensive, as Israel always says, we're simply protecting ourselves against terrorism, it instead represents a proactive policy of taking control of the entire land of Israel from the Mediterranean to the Jordan River. There is nothing in the occupation that you can explain by security. Not the demolition of homes. 24,000 Palestinian homes have been demolished in the occupied territory since 1967, and Israel's never claimed a security reason. These are not homes of terrorists. The building of the wall, the route of the wall through the Palestinian territories, the building of 250 settlements, the uprooting of 1.5 million olive and fruit trees, the economic closure that's completely impoverished the Palestinian population. None of this can be explained by security. Something else is going on, and that something else, we suggest, is a proactive Israeli policy of control. And therefore, the third point is that Israel is the strong party. It is not the victim. And it's a very powerful place to be if you're the victim. Israel insists on being the victim. And it uses the Holocaust in very cynical ways to present that image, because if you're the victim, you're off the hook. Victims can't be held responsible. Victims are victims. So what we say is that Israel is a strong party, it's the occupying power, and as such, it can be held accountable for its policies and actions. All right, I'm not going to go. We've developed other reframings as well. We've developed the Jewish reframing for how do we speak to Jewish audiences. We've developed a Christian reframing. We've developed an American reframing for American audiences, European reframings, a woman's reframing, because the experience of women in occupation is very different from that of men. So we've tried to develop, I'm not going to get into that now, these kinds of reframings. The question is, what would be a German reframing? And I want to finish just, can I take another couple minutes? And trying to stay within the 15 minutes, but it's hard for professors to do something. Let me just say that the first part of our response to this problem of how do you mobilize civil society in a progressive way is to reframe conflict in ways that it takes into account the emotionalism that people have, but nevertheless then puts that emotionalism within a human rights and a reasoned and moral kind of a framework. So we address where the people are coming from, but nevertheless then insert a rational political analysis. The other part of it, I think, is that we have to employ more the language of human rights. That should really become a major part of our discourse. You know, reframing also carries dangers of emotional manipulation. The problem is how to communicate without manipulating people. Even though the presentation of one's case and criticism of one's oppressor carries great emotion and a load of us and them. How to control the emotion and prevent it from burying reason is a matter of both good faith and hard-headed understanding that only a solution that's truly inclusive of both sides will work. This is, I think, it's especially important then to use the language of human rights. Being rational and universal, close to Kant's insistence on the rule of law, and leveling the field between the powerful and weaker states, human rights reframings take into account the perspectives and needs of all the parties. And human rights are also a powerful basis of reframing because they contain those elements of emotion. Idealism in particular, the desire to build a better world in the language of the World Social Forum, which is a social forum held every few years that attracts sometimes hundreds of thousands of young people. So idealism and emotion and the desire for a better world is something that appeals to young people as well. And human rights language that has that emotional load to it offers a compelling yet reasoned means of mobilizing people as a force, a positive, progressive force for perpetual peace in accordance with Kant's Republican formula. All right, so what about Germany? I just say a word. Germany seems to me a country still teetering between guilt for the Holocaust and the political interests of a re-emerging modern world power. Missing for me, and I'm saying this completely as an outsider, so forgive me if I'm stepping on certain emotional toes that I shouldn't be. Missing for me in my time in Germany with Germans, and I come here at least once or twice a year, is closure on the Holocaust. That's what's missing. A closure on the Holocaust without which Germany cannot play a constructive role in resolving the Israel-Palestinian conflict. And that achievement, a Germany that would play that important role in resolving this conflict, would be, in my view, the last, most genuine, and most significant act of reparation for what happened in the past, and without which Germany may never be able to move forward as a healthy, critical society capable of assuming its role in world affairs. Germany has indeed moved very far in what I call a process of national redemption, into which all former colonial and oppressive states must enter. In my book, it's subtitled Redeeming Israel, because redemption is very important for states that have these colonial and oppressive pasts. Germany has acknowledged the terrible injustice it wrought on the Jewish people and others, and it has accepted responsibility. Nazi Germany has been held accountable by the international community, and in a form of restorative justice, the new Germany has reconstituted itself as a republic, playing overall, it's still a state, but overall, playing a responsible role in world affairs. It's also extended important assistance to Israel since that country's inception, although sometimes a little bit too helpful, like the supplying Israel of nuclear-capable submarines, which isn't so great.